up, everyone? How are you doing this Sunday, huh? Everybody doing good? So I thought we'd take a look at Nessus today. That's coffee. That's just coffee with a lot of cream. Like a lot of... what's it called in English? And not cream, not like whipped cream, but like coffee with thick milk or whatever. What's it called? Give me a second. I'll Google it for you. Coffee flavored milk. So not that far off. Yeah, it's cream. Basically coffee with cream, yeah. Yeah, I had a bit much, and this one should probably have more coffee in it. Yeah, so I guess it's a bit funny with the whole Nessus thing. So somebody called me out on what Trusted Sec uses Nessus. I thought that was a bit stupid because, you know, there's nothing inherently, or there was nothing inherently wrong with using Nessus or any other automated vulnerability scanner. It's just the way you use it. If you sell your pen test as basically a Nessus scan with some follow-ups, that's just wrong. You know, that's not an internal pen test. That's an automated vulnerability scan that you as a company should do, you know, bi-weekly, even weekly if you have a gigantic network, a lot of moving pieces. But what we use Nessus for is to make sure there's no gap in our manual work, and also, yeah, just basically get like an overall image at the end of the engagement. So towards the end of the engagement, you know, internal penetration test specifically, we do an automated vulnerability scan. Our tool for that is Nessus, and then we follow up and make sure that those results are in line with what we already found, and we add any missing pieces. So it's just a great way to make sure that you covered all the bases, that you aren't missing anything basic. And obviously, you know, I don't know how other companies do it, but we don't just, you know, we don't just copy paste the findings into our reports or anything. We take those findings and we turn them into our own. For me, it would be interesting to take the Nessus format and then export it out in a different format, so I'm able to use that to easier make my reports, basically save time, because that's just manual labor that we do every time right now, and basically we just needed, or I specifically, I'm not sure I'm saying we, but I would like it to be structured in a bit different way, basically, than the original findings. So what we're going to take a look at today is basically my methodology for reversing how applications work, so we can use the backend API. Obviously, there is, or I shouldn't say obviously, never say obviously. Probably there is some documentation for Nessus, the backend Nessus. I'm not going to look at that much at that, and that is because while the documentation for the different endpoints and the methods used can be good, it doesn't always give you an impression of the flow of the application. Like, you know, usually there's hey, what's up, Abdi? Usually, you know, there's an authentication flow that happens, and you get some sort of token, usually access token, in terms of JA tokens. That's JWT, and then we use that access token to persist access through refreshing it over time, but we can also use it to access resources and endpoints for different categories. Of course I can. I can just turn my mic up. There we go. Is that any better? I'm so glad you said that. Would be terrible, you know, recording the whole stream at low voice. So make sure let me know if the volume isn't okay, if the music is too loud, or if my voice is too low. Appreciate it. Nothing rude about that at all. So I turned it up a bit. Let me know if that's okay. So what I'm basically doing off screen right now is that I'm installing Nessus, setting it up as a licensed version of Nessus. I'm going to be using Burp Community Edition because I'm not going to be bothered with installing the other one. And then I'm just doing a scan of my lab network to find some vulnerabilities. There's really no way for me to gain this much more. I have it cranked up pretty much there. I can do this. Okay, it's decent. Should be decent. Basically the default settings I've been using the last couple of times, so it should be good. Okay, so anyhow, and I'm just performing a network scan on my lab network, just so I have like one scan which I can use as a data reference. Okay, awesome. I'm just waiting for that to finish up. Shouldn't be anything interesting in there scan-wise, and then I'm going to turn off the other VM so I have a bit more computing power to work with when I work in my main development VM. And I get that this stream isn't going to be that hacker related. It's much more a development stream than anything else this stream. I guess I'm sorry for that, but that's just how it's going to be right now. Not sure what I'll look into next week. If you got any submissions for next week, hit me up. I've been thinking about going back into Hack the Box, but honestly, it's yeah, I don't know. We'll see what I'll do next week. Okay, so I guess I'll just let this scan finish off and I get the other stuff set up. So let me share my screen here and see if it looks good. Just gotta make sure I ain't leaking anything that I shouldn't be leaking. That's always my biggest concerns when I share screen, is that I do something I shouldn't. Let me see how this looks. Okay, it looks pretty good, right? So I've installed Nessus locally on this Windows 10 machine. I've started a basic network scan towards my internal lab network, waiting for that one to finish up. Also installed Burp Community Edition, which is wow, English is hard. Which I'm going to be using to capture the network traffic between the Nessus front end and the back end, and then I'm going to use that captured network traffic to sort of, I wouldn't say reverse, because you're basically, I mean, I guess you can say logically reverse the flow and how it works, and then we'll re-implement that in C#. Okay, so let me first install Fireprox. No, Foxy Proxy, I think it's Foxy Proxy, sorry. I always mess those two up. Which is a Microsoft Firefox add-on to switch between multiple proxies, which is great if you work as a security tester or otherwise anything related really. So after you install it in Firefox, pops up in the right corner. You click it, go to options, click add. I'm gonna call this burp proxy. Put it to HTTP for burp. Put it to localhost, and then the default port for burp is 8080 if I'm not mistaken. Gonna save that. Then again, in the community edition, you can't save the data to a project, so it's gonna be a temporary project. That's fine. Burp default, that's fine. I'm just gonna exit these. And now, obviously, we're going to lose connections to our local Nessus instance. I'll show you how to, again, I should stop saying obviously, nothing's obvious. So in this case, we're going to lose our localhost connections because we switched to the proxy, and the proxy by default has interception on. So if you're not familiar with burp, I'm not going to do like a full introduction to it, but basically burp is a I guess web application testing framework or debugging framework. I don't know what the like official term for it is, but it's a tool that allows you to intercept and inspect, edit, replay network traffic. So in this case, by default, it has intercept on, which means that you have to manually accept all the inbound requests. So if I were to go to, say, Google, okay, first I have to switch to burp. Then let's say I would go to Google. You see that, okay, so we're gonna have the HTTPS thing first, right? So Google Firefox is going to recognize that the certificate or the HSTS doesn't match because we're trying to do HTTPS through a proxy, so we need to force install the certificate from burp. The way you can do that is you can turn off interception, and then you can go to localhost. Sorry about that. You can go to localhost 8080, and that should give you this, and then you can click the CA certificate. You can save that, and then so That's a good tip. So if you're intercepting network traffic for applications on your system, and not Firefox or not the web browser, I should say, you can install this certificate as a root machine certificate, and it should pretty much be okay for all applications. Meaning you can intercept HTTPS for applications installed on your local machine. In the case of browsers, you can just give the browser the certificate to allow it. So that's what we're going to do in this case. So I think there's something called settings and then security probably. Yep. And then I think there's view certificates. There we go. I think it's under your certificates import. Haven't done this in a while. Okay. Is it on the authorities? Yeah, probably on the authorities. So you go to authorities, import, and you check both of these. Click OK, OK. And if you retry the Google request, it should now go through, because you're telling Firefox that burp certificate is fine. You can use that. It's safe for sending HTTP traffic through. It's a trusted certificate. It's fine. So if you go into the HTTP history now, let me just refresh this and, let me just clear this and then refresh the site. You can see a bunch of requests. So we can see that once you hit Google, that's going to be a GET request. It's going to return a 200. It's going to return a bunch of JavaScript, which is going to do a bunch of other stuff, including a POST request and then some other GET requests. And yeah, looks to be related to their ad service. Okay, so let's clear this. And then is the scan done? Okay, so the scan is done. So I'm just going to switch out and then turn off the other VMs so we get some more overhead in terms of the, because again, I'm doing this development inside the VM. So just to try to get some more overhead. You don't need to be running 3 other VMs at the same time. So I turn those off. You should be fine to go back in here. So now we have the scan data, and now we basically want to start taking a look at how burp works. So let's clear this. So let's log out first. Let's clear this, and then let's log in. Again, I want to exit out of any other tabs so we don't get any like this stuff right here. We don't need this meanwhile. So let's click login, and we're going to capture that login attempt. Again, this is all local, so don't get too excited about that password. So what we're going to see that in order to get an access token from burp, we're going to have to do a post request to /session. It's going to be a JSON format, and it's going to be a username and password. And then response, we're expecting a 200 OK. We're expecting a token, again, in the JSON format. That token is most likely a JOTO. No, it's way too short to be a JOTO token. So that token is most likely something custom to through burp. I don't think it's basic auth. Doesn't look like basic default, so it's probably not basic auth. That would be a weird implementation of basic auth anyway, but yeah, that's just how it works. And then I'm guessing, yeah, they use that token in the X cookie header, token equals, and that way, Nessus recognizes this. So we got our first set of data that's interesting. This first one is definitely going to be interesting, so I'm just going to highlight that as green. That's going to be going to be implemented in C#. And then it's looking for folders. In this case, the default folder is called My Scans. We probably want to look for folders in our implementation, so we're going to highlight this as green. And then, the folders give us a name. We might want to look for scans within a specific folder. So in this case, it looks like it gets the folders first. The folders has ID, and then it uses that ID in another GET request to check the scans within a folder. So it does /scans, question mark, and then get query parameter, folder ID equals something. In this case, 3, because the my scans folder is index 3. So yeah, again, we want that because we want to fetch all the scans. And in this case, we can see that we have a scan. It has status completed, the name of the scan, who created the scan, etc. And then it's probably going to, then we probably want to go into the scan. So let's click the scan. Looks to be this. What we're interested in is this CSV report. That's what I want to get. What I want to get. So let me just click a report. Let's just select all, and generate report, and that's going to be a request. Yep, it's going to be this request. So okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so first, so after we locate the scan ID, after we do scans folder ID, the scan again is going to have another ID, it looks like, and that scan ID is going to be used in this export post request, which one again we want to highlight, which basically sets a bunch of bools. It sets the format. These bools define what should be included in the export report, it looks like. It sets the limit. I'm guessing maybe that's a time limit. Or is it a size limit? Is it an entry limit? That's hard to know right now, but it gives me back a token and it looks to be a file ID. And then I'm guessing I use that to request the actual data. Okay, so it seems like it does sort of a status request to that token. Looks for a status. When the status is this download is ready, I'm guessing it, yeah, it does /download instead of status. Pretty basic, or pretty, I don't know if it's basic, but like it's pretty logical. So it logs in, gives you a token, right? Then there's a get request to get all the folders. Great. And then again, we can look for scans within each of the folders using the folder ID. Then we can trigger an export for the scans using the folder ID and the scan ID. And then once we request that export, we'll get a token back, and we can use that token to check the status of the export. Because if it's a huge scan, it's going to take a while before the status is completed, and then you can download it. And then I have the CSV data that I need, and I can parse that to whatever I want based on the parameters within the CSV. So that's great. So I guess that's really all I want in the beginning, at least. So let's start coding this. So first, I'm just going to show only highlighted. There we go. Don't need to see that other crap. Then we're going to fire up Visual Studio, and then we need a cool name. Maybe Nessus CLI. Anybody got any good suggestions for the name of this project? Nessus CLI, maybe? That's one I can come up with. Nest dump sounds stupid, or it doesn't sound, or I mean, not the best maybe. Any suggestions at all? Appreciate it here. Then we want a core application, so console.net core. Nespresso. That's not bad. Gonna get copyright struck so bad or so fast. Nespresso. That's a good name, dude. Nespresso. Other than that I'm gonna get copyrighted pretty quickly. It's a good name. So project created command line runs .NET Core, Windows, Linux, and Mac. Nespresso, Nessus CLI, Ness extract, Ness export. So I think Nessus CLI at least gives it the possibility that it could do a lot of other stuff as well. Doesn't necessarily just have to be. You could trigger scans with it. That could be cool, right? You could take so in the future you could take your mass scan export, like the host discoveries mass scan, and then just pipe it into Nessus, and you're done. That could be a way. I think I'm going to do Nessus CLI. I think I'm going to favor my own suggestion. I'm sorry. I'm just going to place it on the desktop here. I'm guessing, I guess 5. Why not? Leading edge. I have another question. Why are you doing this? So, I talked about this initially, but maybe you didn't join late. But I probably talked about this before you joined. But so I work as a penetration tester, or I can actually I can actually say that I work as a red teamer now because I just got moved to the target operations team. So that's cool. But so basically, I still do a lot of internal penetration tests, and towards the end of those tests, we run an Nessus scan. Traitor. We run the Nessus scan. Just to make sure we didn't, we didn't miss anything. Just make sure we cover our bases and we got the full spectrum of things. And I want that output to be different. I want to be able to map that output. So my thought was that if I can automate this in C#, I can map it to whatever format I want, or even integrate it with another third-party API or anything like that. It's basically just a way to programmatically do anything with the output without having to log in and export the CSV and then drag and drop the CSV somewhere else. And yeah, so that's why. Also, it's fun, good learning experience, you know, reversing an API basically. Yay. So there's a couple of NuGet packages we're gonna need. I recently discovered a package that I've fallen in love with for parsing input arguments, and it's called CLI Fix. GitHub, I think it's called CLI Fix. No, yeah, okay, it's here somewhere. It's in this. No, it's not this one. It's not this one, I think, or is it this one? No, it's this, not this one. I think it's called. Oh, sorry, I can't type. I'm gonna find it. Give me a second. I have it in this other project. I'm gonna pull it off screen and show you the plugin. Ooh, that would be great if there were a SDK already for it. Might not end up using it though, because you know I'm trying to make some content here, but I did check if there was a I found at least one open source project. So it's called the CLI FX. Is what it's called. The command line parsing thingy. Wasn't that what I searched for? FX, okay. I just couldn't find it then. So it's this. I'll turn off burp now. It's pretty great. It pre-generates all stuff. So my understanding is that you smack this in the main. So here you smack this in. Then, you know, it's going to be like, oh, sorry. There we go. Okay, no worries, yeah. No, so that's great though. I think I looked up the documentation on it before stream, and while API documentation is great, and you know, it would probably, I don't know if it would actually save me time in this case, but like generally you want to use it. Maybe I thought I'd give like an example of if you don't have it, this is how you would reverse it. But no, I totally get it. Using a predefined SDK or anything else is all commonly better. There we go. And then I think there's like some option definitions. Yeah, there we go. So in this case, you know, arguments you want to give the command is probably the username and password for the trusted for the Nessus instance. So that would be defined strings. Any examples of this? Since I'm lazy, I could just take it from my other project as well. And this should be fine. So now it's going to be a string, and it's going to be username, and it's going to be required. And since these both are required now, if you don't give them if you don't give this program this, when you run it, it will automatically complain again. This is what the command line parser library CLI FX sort of gives you out of the box. You don't have to do any of that parsing. You just do this, And now I can just assume that within this function, you know, I'm gonna have all the properties I need. And you can also give them descriptions. So I think you can do description, no? Description, there we go. Username for the Nessus instance. Username to use or off against. I know I can't type, by the way. I'm horrible. So if you just run this now, it will basically just complain at you saying, hey, I don't have what I need. It should at least. Missing required options. Username, password, blah, 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 blah. So now, I'll give you the structure I like to use. So I usually like to create a folder called models where you keep all your C classes that you deserialize and serialize when you capture data. And then I like to have a handlers folder. And then I like to have a helpers folder. So handlers is usually what other maybe refer to as services. So I'm going to create a Nessus handler, like a Nessus API handler. So I'll do Nessus API. And then, you know, this needs some properties to work. So it's going to be username and password. I'm going to have to speed up if I want to get through like the initial stuff today. So I'm sorry, it's going to be a bit speedy. Right, and then I would probably want to put this in the class. I would probably want an HTTP client as well. That's defined for the whole class, so I don't have to redo that. HTTP client. Actually, I think that's how I defined it previously. And then, you know, you will need a constructor for this, constructor. So you can just create constructor. So the way that shortcut was control dot generate constructor, and then you can just decide what you want to include or not. So username and password. And then I'll initialize the HTTP client. So it's going to be this and new HTTP client. And that way, in this module, we can basically do Nessus API, Nessus handler equals new Nessus API, and then schmack the username and password in there. Username first, and then it's going to be an import. And now I would call all my methods from this. So I would do await this login, right? I would do await get folders, await get scans, and then I would probably like what folders folder lists. I'm just sort of mocking up how I want it to look like right now. And then I was just wanting to do like, so I think it's another console. Yeah, so it uses console output write line instead of just console write line. Found, scan. I'll explain once I'm done doing this. So the scan would be like scan ID. This would be like scan name. Okay. So in this sort of example flow that I just threw out, I would first initiate a login. You could argue that the handler initiation should do the login. I would do the login separately. And then you would get out all the folders you can access from that account, and then you would loop over all the folders. For each folder, you would get a list of scans using the folder ID. For each scan, you would probably get some data, or in this case, I'm just listing out the information. So for this to work, I need to implement login, get folder, and get scans. So login should be the first one. So let's do public. It should return just a bool if it's successfully logged in. Login, and it shouldn't really. So by default, it should return false, and then it should do HTTP client request. So this get async, it should be an async task then. Task, and then might have to. We didn't have to import task. You would have to wait this. Oh, another thing that I completely forgot about is the endpoint, right? I don't know where the endpoint is. So I need probably like a host and a port. So the port could be an int. I completely forgot about this. That's what happens when you develop as you go. So host, and then int would be port. And then just view host, port, host. Go. And then the get async should be, or I need another thing as well, but should be towards that first endpoint that we decoded. So that should be a post request. It shouldn't be a get async, should be a post. And it should go through this endpoint. So we'll just copy the URL, and then we'll do it like this, and then we'll replace the local host for host, and then we should replace the port for port host. Go. And obviously we need some content as well. So I think in this case, that's going to be a var HTTP content. It's going to be a new string content. So string content. That should be the data and then the encoding. If I could type. There we go. That should be UTF-8. And then the meme type or the content type should be application/JSON. And then the actual data type should be this. So here's the cool part, and here's why using burp, and obviously you can do this from the documentation as well, but this is really neat. I like this. So basically, if you want to create, so the proper way to do this is to, since this is JSON, you want to create a class or model in C# that when deserialized matches this JSON, that when serialized turns out to this JSON output, and that way I can also deserialize input and get it into a class and then use it properly in an object-oriented way. So the way I would send this, the easy way would be to smack this straight into a string object and just change it. But the proper way would be to actually create a new model for it. So this, I would call this session request. So moles class session rec for request. And then I will copy this and I would into my clipboard. I would go to edit, paste special, paste JSON as classes. And there we go. Rename it and you're good to go. Now, for me to be able to send this, I could just do, var session object equals new session request, and I could assign it. Wow, this is hard. I could assign it the username being username. I can start with the password being password. And now we have to import this, so there we go. And now, username, there we go. And now I could just do JSON convert, serialized object. JSON convert is a part of a packet called Newtonsoft JSON, so we need to install that. That's really, really common. Hey, Nightwolf, thank you for joining, man. You just serialize the object, smack that session object in there. There we go. And then you put that string content into this. And that's our authentication attempt towards Nessus. Yeah. Okay, so let's our session response. And then I would do, yeah, so this is where this gets interesting in. So now, even though this is just like a simple JSON object with one property, I would still copy this and I would call it models session response resp, or res, I guess is the correct, if you want to keep it correct. So session res, you copy that response from burp, paste as special, JSON as class, rename the class, and you're good to go. Now you have the token. And to properly handle this response, I think there's two ways to do it. So in this session response, you can do session resp equals foo equals session response read wait, what? Response message. Okay, sorry. I think it's content and then read as. Okay, so you don't have that anymore. Okay, we'll read it as a string. And then we'll do JSON convert deserialized object. No, yes, yeah, deserialized object, the type, which is going to be session response. And then the input string. With that, and that's going to be our object, and then we can check, you know, if session blah 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 token string is null or empty, and I realize this won't work. If it's not empty, we'll set it as true. Return true. And okay, so obviously this has some zero error handling, and you know, there's a lot of ways this can go wrong. I guess an easy one is to check, you know, if we do this, if we go back into burp and right click the post session, we go right click and we do send to repeater, go over to repeater, you give it the wrong username and password, set click send, it responds with then 401. So if it's a 401 or if it's any other response than 200, try to parse the output into the error and show the error message. So this would all happen if the session response status code, sorry. Okay, I guess it's successful. We can use that. So if the session response status code is successful, which I think is any 200. Hi, thank you so much for joining, man. Janne Wright. Sheldred, thank you for the follow. So in this case, you know, if the response status code indicates it's successful, we try to deserialize it and show, if that token is not empty, it's valid. We got an authentication login, or we got a valid authentication going, or login attempts. If it is not a successful status code, we want to post this error code. In that case, we'll just cheat a bit right now, and we'll do this. So we'll still read this thing as a string, but we'll. So how does this work now? Yeah, we'll see if the constant right line works. Session response object. That would be the raw error response. It would just print that into the console, and then yeah, usually, or if you want to do it properly, you would deserialize this and then just print the error. But I'm gonna do this for now. Okay, great. So we got our login implementation going. If this returns true, we know that the credits are valid. It doesn't do anything now. So what this should do is to put the token we get in response. That token should be assigned as a default header into our HTTP client, so that all requests after this login attempt within this class that uses the same initialized HTTP client has that token and can authenticate. So in this case, that would be we want to do HTTP client. I think it's something called add default or headers, default request headers. We can't set that. Add, no. Okay, can you add it? Okay, let's try. So the string name, the default request header name would be, looking at the other requests, it would be xcookie. That would be the name. And then the value would be token equals followed by the token. So, and then just session response object token. And that should, in principle, ensure that all requests from that instance of HTTP client after this login attempt should be authenticated and should be valid and available. Okay, cool. So that's done. Yeah, isn't this an async? Give me a second. Yeah, I need to put an async in front. There we go. And then of course I'm just gonna, for now, I'm just going to add the defaults here. And that would be, the default port is 8834. There we go. So login. So, you know, if we put a gigantic if in front of this, if that login attempt is indeed valid, then we can go ahead and try the other stuff. If not, then, you know, we won't. I don't think we need to return anything for this. Nope. Okay, cool. So let's do console write line. Nope, sorry, it's this. Login success. Oh my god, I'm fucking around today. Login. Got login token. There we go. And to test this, let's just comment out the other stuff. And then let's open this folder here. And then try it. So let's do Nessus CLI. Needs a dash username. Let's see if it's case sensitive. If it's case sensitive, where's the credentials? I put them here. So Flungweek is the username, and the password is going to be this long thing that I probably need to put into double quotes. Okay, so this is expected actually. So if you notice that our local instance of Nessus is not running with a valid HTTP certificate. And when we logged into it through Firefox, of course, we could ignore that, but our HTTP client is now complaining that we couldn't establish because, you know, this remote certificate is invalid according to validation procedures, blah, blah, blah. So this is a very common thing when working with sketchy local running APIs, and you basically, most of the time, you just want to ignore it because it's not going over the internet, it's going locally, it's fine. So the way to ignore that is pretty straightforward. I just need to find the code for it. I'm going to steal it from one of my other projects instead of spending 5 minutes looking it up on Google. So just give me a second here. Stealing in progress. Give me a second. So what you need to do is that you need to basically suppress the server certificate custom validation callback. So in this, when you create this new HTTP client, you want to give it an HTTP client handler that has a custom server certificate custom validation callback override that basically ignores all this stuff. So HTTP client handler, put that in there, and we should be good. We should. Notice the should. Got login token. Great. That is true. Half. 90% of coding is stealing code. Alright. Solid input there. Yeah. Okay. So that worked. We got the login token successfully. Now let's try to get all the folders. So for that, we want to create the get folder authentication request, which is this. And in the Nessus API, that's going to be public, async, and then probably a list of some objects. So I'm just going to do a list of a string right now. This. There we go. And that should be get folders actually, because we're getting all the folders. And we can just basically ignore this. Let's copy this out for a template. And I think this is a simple get request. So looking at the burp output again, yeah, it's just a get to / folders. So we don't need any of this data. We can just do get async and / folders. And then if it is a successful status code, we want to parse this. So let's copy this. And then in the models, let's do folders res for response. And then copy, paste as JSON classes, folder res, folder res. There we go. And now, in the Nessus API, we want to do folder res. And that's going to be folder res. We don't need to check any of this. And then I think we should just return this straight up. So this return session resp object, and then we want to rename this. Of course, this is going to be folder res. This is going to be folder res. That went really quick. I'm so sorry, or that went a bit too quick, but that's just how it's going to be. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, we could just keep the same error handling here. It's okay for now. Okay, so let's see this work. In this case, that would be folder list folders. We go to each of the folders, then we want to try to get the scans for these folders, which would be this request. So that would be get scans. So Nessus API, I'm going to copy this header or this top of this function to use as a template for the other one. Rename it to get scans, and we want to take an int input for the ID of the folder we want to get the scans from. We could copy this again as a template, and then the request is going to be /scans and then a get query folder ID equals. So it's going to be scans equals folder ID this, and then we can just do ed for folder ID. Yep, looks about right. That's going to be a get request. It's going to return some more JSON data, some beautiful JSON data, which is going to be our scans response. So new class scans res, or sorry, scan res. Paste, 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 paste the paste. Yep, I did it correctly. And now, this is very common, you can see that I already have a folder declared within the same namespace, and therefore it's complaining, hey, the namespace models already has the definition for folder. If we look at folder res and that folder structure is the same, that's fine. We can remove this now because we know that the folder class is referring to has the same structure as the one we tried to create. That's just a handy dandy sort of debugging tip, I guess, if you're running into that. Get scans folder, and that's probably going to be ID. Yeah, I was correct. The get scans though is not accessible. Why is that not accessible? Didn't I give it a public? Oh, I did. Yeah, I just typed it wrong because I'm a noob. And then obviously this needs to be a scan response now. And then we need to rename this scan response. And rename this to scan response object folder. And rename and change the return output type. And there we go. Easy peasy. And now we're down to this. We're down to the scans. Okay, so I want to debug this to make sure it works. The way I like to do that is either by going to properties and then to debug, and then you can put in the application arguments there instead of overriding them. So in code, so I could just do like this. Smack them in here, save it, and then when I run it, the application should run with those commands. And then let's see what happens. So it got the login. Great. Let's go into the get folders function. Let's see that resolved correctly. It got a 200. That's great. We're getting, since it's a 200, the successful status code bool is true. We get the folder response. Looking at that, looks like we have two folders. One's called trash and one's called my scans. That's awesome. Then we'll go through each of the folders. The first one is going to be trash. So that one's probably not going to have any scans. Going into this, got a 200. It's probably going to be an empty list. You know. Wait, what is this? Get scans. My scans. Why am I asking for folders again? Okay, I'm confused now. Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so it's so even if I do this scans, it still states all the folders. Okay, sure. It's just populates the scan. All right, that's fine. Then for each scan, you're going to have an issue. Okay, object not set to an instance of or reference of an object. Okay, let's stop here and then rerun this and see what the output here is. There we go. So, okay, so it can't catch the scans. Why is that? I think I did something wrong in the get scans function here. Get scans folder ID equals the ID, and then that should populate the scans folder. Why doesn't it do that when it's the scans respond? That's weird. Okay, so I think I need to step this one out. Scan res. Oh. Just so I can look at the actual string data before it gets parsed and see what's going on here. Okay, so why is scan 0? Oh yeah, of course it's 0, because it's for the trash folder. That explains. Okay. So that explains everything. I'm just stupid. So I need to ignore this. I'll just add and check then. Jesus, I thought that was going to be fine, but it's not. I need the null checks here as well. So since that scan wasn't always skipping it, now we're going into the second folder, which is the my scans folder, and that has one scan. Great, great, great. And we're printing output. Output was scan 5 name if the lid is correct. Great. So we successfully recursively gone through all the folders, all the scans. We named them. We got some error handling in, not everything. I would say good enough for a local application that you know, a handful of people might end up using. I think that's going to be, what is this? I think that's going to be fine. Okay, so now we want to trigger the export for this scan. So for this scan, we want to do export await Nessus handler, trigger export or start export. And then we want to do that for that scan ID. And then while await Nessus handler check export scan ID. Oh, that's going to be, okay, that's going to be that export tokens. That's going to be var string export token. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to trigger the export. That's going to give out the export token. Again, we learned this from the burp output. Then we're going to continually check that export using the export token. And if it's not ready, we're going to sleep. And once it's ready, it's going to be out of that while loop. And then we could basically var export data, Nessus handler, get export. Export token. And that's going to be our data. And then this start export function should probably have other input parameters such as the output type, XML, JSON, or CSV. I think is supported by Nessus. And then they could have all the bool attributes to choose what elements we want to include for each of those. But I'm just going to be doing it statically encoded to CSV because that's what I want. So it's going to be start check download Nessus API. Let's go up here and let's just do start. Gonna use this as a baseline again. Start export, check export, and then download export. Download export, check export. That's gonna be string export token. And then download export is going to be string export token. And the check export is going to be a bool return. And then the trigger export is also going to be, that's going to be the token thing. Okay, so start export, that's a post request to this URL where this is the scan ID. So that's going to be a post async, and the URL is going to be like that, where this is going to be the scan ID, and the other stuff we're just going to leave it for now. I haven't checked into what the limit is. Might be the the time it takes to generate. I don't know. Then they're going to be the post data, and the post data is most likely JSON. So var post data new string content. The data, and then the encoding, which is going to be UTF-8 most of the time, and then the media type, which is going to be application. That's JSON to tell the server that the data we're sending is JSON. It's going to be this output right here. That's going to be the export request. So export rec. Gonna smack that in there. Paste special export rec. And then I want to put all these bools to true, so right, because all of these are true. So I think get can we override to true like that, right? Set, I'm googling on the hand side, set default bool true property C#. Okay, I can just do this at the end. We can just do this. There we go, all bools through. And then this format by default is going to be CSV. All glow caps, the rest looks about okay-ish. Yeah, looks about good. Yeah, good, okay. And then in this Nessus API where we start the export, that's going to be a new instance of var export start export objects, no, export request export rec, new export request. Just gonna do this because the default initialization of it is going to be enough, since we put those default data in, parameters in. And then we gotta serialize this so it's actually string data. And that's gonna do it, I think. That's gonna give us a response that looks like this. That's gonna be our export res. Export res. Smack that in there. I know it's going really quick, but in the interest of time, I just sort of have to do it this way. This is why I don't like doing long development streams, because I end up hurrying, going through it in a hurry. I always end up doing that, and I always end up taking on a bit too much of a project to actually cover in like a couple of hours, or 1 hour ideally. Okay, so that's going to be the response. So let's rename this to export response. Post data, that's fine. And then this is going to be different. This is going to be different. This is going to be different. That's going to be fine. So that, I mean, there we go. So we got the starting of the export, and then we want to check it, which is going to be /tokens, and then the token, and then the status. It's going to be this. Export token. This. That's going to give us some output. So that's going to be status export response. Status export this. Again, edit, paste, JSON class, rename. And then basically we just want to check if the scan resp object status equals ready. If the status is ready, then we can download. Just return that if statement, or yeah, we can just do that. If not, it's a false. I should be fine. And then the actual download, which is the same as this one, just with the download response, or with the download data. So it's going to be download. It's going to be a GET request with the exact same stuff, just /download. It's going to be download export, and it's going to be some string data. We're going to put this straight out there. We're not going to deal with any of this. Actually, sorry, I don't know why I did that. Just remove the return, ignore this, and then just return scan response raw. Cool, that's gonna be it. And then, you know, start export. Why isn't that good? Yeah, export token. It's gonna be a token. Cool, so this is the data. And then we're just going to do file write. Use existing IO, write all text, and then to a path. And then that path is going to be specified here. That's going to be a required export output path. There we go. And I'm going to edit that again in the solution here. Where did I do that? There we go. So I'm going to do out path and then give it a place on the desktop here. Out.csv, and then we'll check if that works. So let's see, peeps, if we got this running. So we got the export object, the token, and we're checking. Okay, it's ready, it seems. Export data, CSV, write to text, out.csv. Boom! Haha! That fucking worked! Who would have thought, eh? Cool. I'm just happy that worked. Me implementing 3 different API calls and then test between them, and it just worked. That's awesome. Cool. So that's our beautiful. That's our initial CLI, and then, you know, after this I would probably make, so I can't tell you about this, but I would probably, I am going to use this for something, but we're going to do it off stream. But basically, now that you have the data in code, you can modify the export request to only include the data you want, and then you can map that CSV dynamically in C# to JSON, and then you can map that to whatever structure you want afterwards. Or you can integrate it with another third-party API if you have like a custom reporting software or whatever. There's a lot you can do with this. So I think I'm gonna upload this just because then I have a POC, then you guys have a POC, proof of concept, which you can use for baseline. If there's an SDK, obviously this isn't gonna be anything like the SDK. The SDK is already way better, or most likely way better. Nessus hot. Nessus port. Required is false for both of these. Int Nessus port. Host. Can I do like a default? Like this maybe? I'm guessing I can do this. That? Can I do that? No? Yeah, I can. Cool. Then just smack that in there. And then it should work by default as well. Actively connection to actively refused. But why? Did I type the port wrong? 8834, yeah. 8834. There we go. Cool, okay, works. I think that's gonna be it for today. Again, I need suggestions from you guys, what you want me to do. There's some stuff I wanted, or yeah. So join the, if you're not in my Discord channel, feel free to join that. I'll drop the link right now, invite link, and hit me up with any questions or submissions, requests for what to do next stream. You know, I'm trying to cover the most interesting and hot topics, and some weeks there just isn't hot topics, right? So I end up doing stuff like this. So I think somebody... So last time, 2 weeks ago, somebody requested the NetLoader project. I did a video on that. And before that, KK Nas requested some more AMSI bypass stuff. He requested a bunch of evasion stuff. I've done a bit of that. So I want to sort of get away from... I don't want to get away from doing it, but I don't want to do that every stream because it gets tiresome. Might do initial access. Okay, so I could definitely pick one of those. Lulbins is cool. Somebody just found a new RunDLL or RunDLL equivalent Lulbin I could take a look at. Post-exploitation and initial access. Yeah. Yeah, I could talk a bit about that. Yeah, sure. If you do have other suggestions though, feel free to comment them in the submissions tab on the Discord. The more the merrier, right? One thing I could showcase is that, you know, Scalesec gave me early access to his NTLM relay alternative called NTLM relay, or NTLM relay. So I could showcase that. Would have to run it by him, but that'd be cool. So looks solid so far. Haven't got the time to test it so much. I haven't gotten the time yet to test it that much, but yeah. I think that's going to be it for today. Stealthy automation is like a 600 level course, yeah. A lot of this initial access post-exploitation stuff is very TTP related. And while I love learning and sharing, you know, some stuff I might keep to myself, and you know, we might keep internal for obvious reasons. But yeah, no, I could talk a bit about either of those. That's definitely possible. Yeah, but I think I'm gonna cut it here, peeps. Thank you so much for joining today's stream. I hope you learned something. I know the last 40 minutes or so was a bit rushed coding, but I mean, you see the flow. I think the most important stuff I want to convey is how I sort of look into applications by looking at the communication between the backend and the front end, or I should say front end. Next, you need to discover it. By looking at the integration between front end and back end. I think that's where the main learning comes from. Using burp, capturing the traffic, recreating that traffic in C#, etc. So yeah, everybody have a great day. Monday tomorrow, so enjoy the rest of your Sunday and enjoy the Monday when it comes. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much for